Happy Friday, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving. I hope you all had an amazing day yesterday with wonderful naps on schedule and just a wonderful time with your families. We had an awesome holiday. It was super fun. Both boys were really well behaved. It was amazing. Anyway, so now we're back to the real world, and it's Friday and time for happy hour again. Today I want to talk about a question that I receive all the time, which of course doesn't have an easy answer, which is, how long do you need to be on a new formula? Or another way of wording that is, how long should I give a new formula before I know if it's a good fit or not, or if it's working or not? So there's a million ways to phrase it, but the big issue or the big underlying question is timeline. Like, how long before we know we need to try another one is basically the thing nobody wants to say out loud. And I'm going to do my best to give you the most scientific answer possible. Of course, the answer is it depends, which is terrible to say. But here is the ideal answer is 10 days on 100% the new formula. So I like to do a slow transition. So ideally, it would be once you are on 100% the new formula, 10 full days. That is forever. So and just not possible for some families, depending on severity of symptoms. A more realistic answer is a week, 7 full days, 100% once you've gotten to the new formula. But I fully understand that a full week is a quarter of the lifespan of a 1-month-old. So even 7 days sometimes is too long. So it, depends a little bit on the age of the baby and the severity of the symptoms that we're trying to address. So the ideal situation is usually not possible, as with all infant feeding questions. So what I wanted to give you a little more information about is how to know how long to give a formula, kind of the factors that would go into deciding how long is enough to know it is or it's not working. So I got notes for myself. The question to ask is, once you have switched all the way 100% to a new formula, every day you're asking, is he getting better? And of course, better is different for every baby. And if the answer is yes, well, my God, you have the answer. You don't need to worry about it anymore. So you're not watching this. If the answer is no, is he getting worse? So if he's not getting better, is he at least kind of on the same degree of bad? And if he's on the same degree of bad and you're within that 7 days, I probably want you to keep going. And the question, if I say, is he getting worse? And you say yes, I'd probably push you a little more and say, is he getting really worse? So of course, if you have terrible reactions to a new formula, like extensive mucus, coughing, wheezing with eating, blood in the stool, like scary things, of course, don't wait it out. Stop it right away. If I say, is he getting worse? And you say, I'm not really sure, but he seems more gassy. He's definitely not sleeping any better, but I don't know if it's worse. A little bit worse is okay in the first couple days of a switch, and I'll explain why. So I want you to know why. So when you're observing your baby, you have a good idea of why this may be happening, and so then if you should stick it out. Underlying all of this is why I ask parents to take extensive notes when they switch formulas. It's really annoying. You don't think you need to do it. You need to do it. Just like, scribbles on a piece of paper is fine. But the reason is sometimes you don't realize things are getting better, or you don't realize things are getting worse because you're with your baby all the time. Your life is your baby. It's all you're thinking about. Poop, like how often he's pooping, is controlling your life. So small, subtle changes can be really easily missed. I sell some worksheets along with my ebook on changing formulas. So if you want to purchase that, I've done all the work for you. If you don't, just keep notes yourself. So if gas is your number one problem, keep notes. And it's hard to notice, but just give yourself a scale. So on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being he was amazing, he passed all his gas on his own without a single bicycle and never cried. 10 being like we didn't sleep at all. You give it a number. And that's the best you can do. But honestly, it's really hard to know that you went from a 6 to a 5 to a 4 if you don't write it down. Because you're sleep deprived, it's really hard to notice that kind of a change. And, well, those are enough. this happens all the time, that parents don't notice a subtle shift and then they change formulas again before that subtle shift could become a big shift. So seeing a little bit of progress can be very promising that you'll see even more progress once the baby's been on the new formula for a month. But of course, if you change formulas again, you won't know. So that's why it's really important to take notes. Okay, so next, I wanted to, like I said, give a little more examples and some factors that you should consider when deciding how long is a good trial experimental period for your individual baby. It basically depends on, the timeline depends on the underlying problem the baby's having. This is why it's going to be different for every baby. So I'll give you some examples. The first one is like a very traditional severe cow's milk protein allergy. So severe meaning usually those present with severe symptoms. So your baby has a terrible rash, they have mucousy stool with specks of blood, and they're very uncomfortable. Well, if that baby gets switched to a hypoallergenic formula, oh, my storage is almost full. Yes, I know that. Their symptoms will resolve almost immediately. Now, they could have some residual crankiness, but you'll see a lot of the scary stuff go away right away. That's what everybody hopes for when they change formula. And honestly, that kind of magical change rarely happens outside of the context of like a traditional severe allergy that then we address. So what's more likely is that it's usually not that simple in terms of an allergy is not simple, but in terms of a single problem. So it's usually more complicated, has several factors, and usually if you're changing formula, your baby was in some kind of discomfort, so often there's a little bit of healing that needs to occur. Once the irritant, like whatever is bothering your baby in your old formula, once that's removed, sometimes you don't see a magical change because the baby has to heal a little bit. So often in the intestines, I use the word damage because it's medical, but it's not scary. There's some micro damage to the intestinal lining. There's some slight underlying inflammation, and those things need to heal and clear up before the baby presents with better symptoms. It's just like if you get a really bad sunburn. It's not going to kill you, but just coming out of the sun doesn't immediately make it go away. You've removed the irritating factor, but your body needs a couple days. Your skin might need to peel. Like you might have to go through some healing, gross pains, before all of a sudden you're back to your fresh skin. Clearly, I'm very Irish and I suffer from chronic sunburn like a vampire as soon as I walk out of the door. It's a little bit of a sore topic. Anyway, but that's why sometimes it can take longer and why sometimes you don't see immediate resolving of symptoms when you switch to a formula that is actually better. This is also why sometimes if parents think that things might be worse or there's a new symptom but it's not terrible in the first couple days of a switch, I might encourage them to stick with it for a couple days, because if on your old formula, your baby's gut was very irritated and there's some inflammation, when you switch to a new formula, inevitably, a new formula will have new ingredients, and there might be a new ingredient in the new formula that is temporarily causing a new symptom. For example, if the gut is inflamed and now you add a new prebiotic, it may temporarily cause the baby to have some discomfort because the gut hasn't totally healed. Once that healing occurs, then that irritation will go away because a healthy gut wouldn't respond that way. But in between 2 days of when the gut is still healing, you have this temporary irritating reaction that you notice and you think, oh, this formula is even worse, but it could just be a temporary hurdle you have to get over while your baby's healing. And since the old irritant has been removed, the healing will occur. Now, it's always possible that the new formula is not a good fit, but if you just change after, like trying it for 2 days, it's impossible to know and you'll never know. So you'll be constantly playing the what if game in your head. The other thing that happens whenever you change a formula is inevitable. You have huge shifts in the microbiome. So this is all the healthy bacteria that live in your baby's gut. So your baby's only eating formula. The bacteria in your baby's intestines are only eating formula or formula digestive products that are coming through. So whenever you change the diet, inevitably, those bacteria are going to change. Some species are going to explode in growth because they like the new diet better. Others are going to die off. But the point being, whenever you have a change in the microbiome, you're gonna have gas. It's just a fact of life. And you might even have some blowouts, like diarrhea-esque symptoms. Not full-blown, like watery, scary diarrhea, but, loose, more frequent stool. So if a parent says, we're trying this formula, we're on day 3, but he seems super gassy, I'm like, it's only day 3. This could be just that temporary change in the bacteria, which will even out with once you've been on the new formula for a couple days, the colonies, the different species settle out, and then you'll stop having that turbulent gas machine. So if you're dealing with gas in the first couple days, it's so hard, but try to stick it out for at least that 7 days if possible to notice if the gas gets better. And again, write it down. If he's on a 7 gas a day, 2, and then an 8, and then he goes back to a 7, we're moving in the right direction. Maybe you got over that hump. So the microbiome will change with a new formula, and that can cause some digestive issues temporarily. Temporarily is the key. Okay, the last factor you should consider, which is different for every baby, is on the old formula, whatever symptoms you're trying to get rid of, how severe were they and where were they located? So for example, if your old formula was just causing a lot of gas, that may have been caused by many reasons, but it potentially could clear up quickly. If your old formula, you're getting off it because you're having chronic diarrhea issues or just a lot of loose stool, well, when you have diarrhea for a long time, you lose some of that intestinal lining from all the constant, one-way explosive motion. So just biologically, we know intestinal lining heals very quickly, but it does need to heal, and it will take a couple days. I would say, again, I can't say. It depends on the severity of the damage, 24 to 48 hours for those cells to start really regenerating. And so you just should go in knowing I shouldn't even start to think about changes until 24 to 48 hours after we're on the new formula, because his little intestines aren't even functioning perfectly until that time. Another example, if your baby had severe reflux and you're trying a new formula, well, was it severe enough that he may have some healing to do? Does he have some burns in his esophagus that need to heal before he's going to be able to communicate to you that he feels better? And in severe reflux, that is the case. They get some burns and they need to heal. Well, then, you shouldn't even expect a new formula to show any real relief until at least 24, 48, even 72 hours until that esophagus has had a chance to heal, because otherwise it'll still be raw. So of course it'll still bother them. Just like, if you had any other wound, you don't expect it to really feel better until it's had a chance to heal. Eczema is another hard, tricky one because, again, depending on the severity of the eczema, and if you're dealing with eczema, once the eczema has flared up, like it could have flared up from nutrition, but then other things can kind of keep it inflamed, like scratchy fabrics, what's another thing? If they get too hot, it gets inflamed. Lotions, like once it's there, exterior dermal skin factors can keep it flamed up. So it can take a little longer to heal. So if you're dealing with a huge flare up of eczema, so you're trying new formulas, you just need to keep that in mind that, eczema is not something that usually disappears overnight. And other things, once it's appeared, can prolong the prognosis. It can make it longer before it goes away. So I'm hoping what I'm trying to communicate is your baby's individual symptoms will affect how long it will take for a new formula to show improvement, which is why a blanket time isn't appropriate, but also hopefully that just helps you understand for your baby how long you should wait. And again, so what symptoms and how severe were their symptoms? And then again, just to recap, also remember that a lot of times we won't see any resolution in symptoms until whatever the problem was has healed. And remember that anytime you change a formula at all, you're going to have shifts in the microbiome, the bacteria, and that usually accompanies gas and sometimes shifts. I'll just say shifts in stooling pattern and consistency. and those usually even out. The time is different for every baby, but I would expect to see those most pronounced in the first couple days once they've shifted over to the majority of the new formula. So like once you get past the half and half dilution mark, that's when I would start to expect seeing some of these microbiome effects like gas and stool changes. And those, if it's from the microbiome, it will even out over time. That's it. The last note I did notice on here is if you, unfortunately, babies get sick and we're coming up to flu season. If you have any illness that occurs during like this changing process, you really just have to give yourself some grace because it's really hard to know, is it the formula or is it the illness? A lot of viruses in babies cause a rash, which can make eczema look worse. It can look like eczema. It can take weeks to go away, even after like a fever or a runny nose has gone. Sometimes the rash remains. So of course, I mean, you need to be talking with your doctor if your baby's sick. But if your baby is ill or comes down with a cold or a virus during this time, of course, it's just impossible to know. Like, did they get a bug and have diarrhea? Well, was that because of the formula or was it just the bug? So if you are unfortunate enough to contract an illness during a formula change, it just extends the timeline. You just need to wait it out a little more. And the other thing that I will end with is trust your intuition during all of this. Like, I can spout all this stuff at you all day long, and my only goal is to give you more, I'm giving your intuition more background knowledge. But trust your instinct about whether the formula is working with your baby or not. That's my whole goal with my whole website and everything that I do, is I just want to provide you with the information so that you're able to follow your instincts with confidence. So trust your instincts most of all, but those are other things to keep in mind when you are on that cusp of thinking like, yikes, I really don't know if this is working. Should we try another one? You don't want to get into that what if cycle where changing formulas frequently and then thinking, oh, should I have stayed on the other one longer? So having a little bit of an informed plan about how long is helpful. So I hope that helps you. I'm sorry if you're heading into a formula change because that's just very stressful around the holidays. And I wish you guys the very merriest holiday. Hopefully next time you see me, I'll have some Christmas decorations up somewhere. I love Christmas and I love cheesy Christmas decorations. I just can't wait to get them up. So again, hopefully you'll see some of those next week. And I will see you guys next week. In the meantime, if you are having formula issues, reach out to me. I'm at babyformulaexpert.com. I do free 15-minute consultations. If you have a couple quick questions I can help you with. And I just love working with families who are really struggling and help get them some clarity and an actual strategic plan to move forward to be sure they're on the right path to get their baby comfortable. So I would love to provide that support to you if that would be helpful. And either way, I'll see you guys next Friday. Take care. Bye.